The forgotten signal. The wind howled across the barren plateau, carrying a fine mist of dust that seemed to blur the line between earth and sky. Remy Voss barely noticed the desolation outside the reinforced windows of Outpost Delta 9, her attention fixed on the intricate web of screens and signal processors that dominated her workspace. For 3 years, she had called this remote research station home, a solitary sentinel monitoring the vast emptiness of deep space. Most would have found the isolation maddening, but for Remy, it was a refuge. Here, surrounded by humming electronics and the constant whisper of radio waves, she felt more connected to the universe than she ever had among people. Her fingers danced across the control panel, adjusting filters and cleaning up background noise. Each movement was precise, a product of countless hours spent listening to the cosmic static. Most days brought nothing but white noise and the occasional satellite transmission. But today was different. A faint signal had emerged from the background radiation, unlike anything Remy had encountered in her years of monitoring. It wasn't the clean, structured pulse of a satellite or the predictable pattern of a pulsar. This was something else, irregular yet deliberate, like a fragment of a language just beyond comprehension. "Zara," Remy called out, her voice breaking the silence of the control room. "Run a full spectrum analysis on the current input." The station's AI system responded instantly, its voice smooth and genderless. "Analyzing, Remy. Preliminary scan shows anomalous characteristics." Remy leaned closer to the screen, her reflection ghosting over the cascading data. She had long since learned to trust Zara's insights. The AI was more than just a tool, it was a collaborative partner, developed using experimental quantum computing algorithms that gave it capabilities far beyond traditional systems. "Isolate the signal," Remy murmured, more to herself than to Zara. "There's something here." The screen flickered, data streams transforming into a complex geometric pattern. It was beautiful in its complexity, fractal-like structures that seemed to pulse with an inner life. Remy felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just random noise. This was a message. "Signal origin cannot be determined," Zara reported. "Quantum entanglement properties detected. Source appears to be simultaneously multiple and nowhere." Remy's scientific mind wrestled with the contradiction. Quantum mechanics had always suggested the possibility of information existing in multiple states simultaneously, but this was different. This was a signal that defied conventional understanding of space and communication. Outside, the landscape remained unchanged, a vast emptiness that belied the potential significance of what was unfolding inside the small research station. Remy knew she stood at the precipice of something extraordinary. Whatever this signal represented, it would change everything. "Prepare full recording protocols," she instructed Zara. "We're not losing a single bit of this transmission." The AI's response was immediate. "Recording initiated. Quantum encryption protocols engaged." As the strange signal continued its enigmatic dance across her screens, Remy Voss realized her quiet life of observation was about to become something much more. The universe, it seemed, was ready to reveal a secret it had kept hidden for far too long. Little did she know, the signal was more than just a random burst of cosmic information. It was a beacon, a quantum-encrypted message that would set in motion a chain of events destined to reshape humanity's understanding of reality itself. The first chapter of an unprecedented journey was about to begin. Whispers from the void. The secure communication chamber of the Interstellar Research Consortium buzzed with tension. Dr. Finn Rice stared at the encrypted transmission from Outpost Delta 9, his fingers drumming an irregular rhythm against the reinforced glass of the holographic display. "This can't be real," he muttered, though he knew better than to dismiss the data. Commander Elena Novak stood beside him, her posture rigid with a military precision that contrasted with the scientific chaos of the research facility. She had seen her share of unexplained phenomena. But this was different. The signal Remy Voss had discovered defied every known principle of communication and quantum mechanics. "Break it down for me." "Finn." Elena demanded, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of computer systems. Finn adjusted his glasses, a nervous habit that betrayed his otherwise calm demeanor. The signal exhibits properties that shouldn't exist. It's simultaneously present across multiple quantum states. Imagine a message that exists everywhere and nowhere at once. Elena raised an eyebrow. Speak English, Doctor. It's like, imagine a letter that can be read in every possible version of a room simultaneously, Finn explained. Except it's not just a metaphor. This signal actually behaves that way. It's as if someone, or something, has found a way to communicate beyond the limitations of linear space and time. The implications were staggering. If true, this would revolutionize everything humanity understood about communication, quantum mechanics, and potentially even the nature of consciousness itself. A notification pinged on the display. Finn's fingers flew across the interface, pulling up additional data. The signal's complexity is increasing. It's adapting, almost like it's learning from our attempts to analyze it. Elena leaned closer, her military background kicking in. Is it a threat? Finn hesitated. I don't know. It's not like any communication protocol we've ever encountered. It's more like a conversation waiting to happen. Deep within the consortium's most secure servers, an advanced AI system began processing the signal. Unlike standard computational models, this system was designed to approach problems with a level of intuition that bordered on sentience. Its designation was simply an XUS-7, but those who worked closest to it often spoke of it in hushed, almost reverent tones. Decryption protocols are inconclusive, NetXUS-7 reported, its voice a perfect blend of mechanical precision and something almost human. The signal represents a form of communication that exists outside our current understanding of information transfer. Elena frowned. Can you translate it? Negative. NetXUS-7 responded. But I can confirm it is deliberate. This is not random noise. This is a message. Across the room, a younger researcher named Javier Rodriguez watched the exchange with a mixture of excitement and fear. He had spent years studying theoretical quantum communication, but this was beyond anything in his wildest academic papers. It's like the universe is trying to tell us something, Javier mumbled, more to himself than to anyone else. Finn turned to him. Exactly. But the question is, what? Back at Outpost Delta 9, Remy Voss continued her relentless analysis. Zara, the station's AI, had been working continuously, creating complex mathematical models to understand the signal's unique properties. Quantum entanglement confirms recursive information patterns, Zara reported. The signal is not just a message, it's a key. A key to what? Remy whispered. As if in response, the signal pulsed, a brief, intense burst of data that momentarily overwhelmed their systems. For a fraction of a second, something seemed to peek through. A glimpse of something vast, incomprehensible, and utterly alien. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, it was gone. Elena, Finn, and the entire research team stood in stunned silence. Whatever was happening, they knew one thing with absolute certainty. Nothing would ever be the same again. The universe had just knocked on humanity's door, and humanity was about to answer. The quantum anomaly. The Cronus Research Facility stood as a testament to human technological ambition, a sprawling complex nestled deep within the Siberian wilderness, far from prying eyes and unexpected interruptions. Dr. Viktor Sokolov moved through the facility's sterile corridors, his weathered hands clutching a tablet displaying increasingly bizarre data. Dr. Luca Winters followed close behind, her mind racing with the implications of their latest discovery. They had been tracking the quantum signal that had first emerged from Outpost Delta 9, and now something unprecedented was happening. The signal is destabilizing quantum fields around it, Luca explained, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not just transmitting information, it's actively manipulating the fundamental structure of space-time. Victor stopped, turning to face her. His eyes, sharp and intense, reflected decades of cutting-edge research. Manipulating is an understatement. It's rewriting the rules. Deep within the facility's most secure laboratory, an experimental quantum computer hummed with an unusual intensity. Unlike conventional systems, this device operated on principles that pushed the boundaries of current scientific understanding. It was designed to interact with quantum phenomena in ways most researchers could only theorize about. At last, Victor called out to the facility's primary AI system, "Run another comparative analysis of the signal's quantum signature." The A's response was immediate. Analyzing. Quantum coherence shows unprecedented levels of complexity. The signal appears to be evolving. Luca's fingers danced across her own display, pulling up intricate holographic representations of the signal's behavior. What had started as a mysterious transmission was now demonstrating properties that defied every known law of physics. "It's like watching a language learn itself," she muttered. Each iteration becomes more complex, more structured. A sudden alarm broke the facility's controlled environment. Monitors flickered, showing quantum entanglement readings that seemed to defy mathematical possibility. The signal was no longer just a passive transmission. It was becoming something more. "Victor," Luca said, her voice trembling slightly, "I think it's trying to communicate." The facility's security systems began to react. Blast doors sealed automatically. Quantum containment fields activated with a low, menacing hum. Whatever was happening was far beyond their initial predictions. On one of the main screens, a pattern began to emerge. A complex, three-dimensional geometric structure that seemed to pulse with an inner light. It was beautiful and terrifying, in equal measure, a mathematical language that spoke of something utterly alien. At last, Victor commanded, "Full quantum isolation protocols." Now. But it was too late. The signal burst through their defenses like a wave of pure information. For a moment, the entire facility seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, present and not present, whole and fragmented. Luca watched in awe as the quantum computer began to transform. Its circuits weren't just processing the signal, they were being rewritten by it. Lines of code became living mathematics, digital information bleeding into something that defied traditional understanding. "What are you?" she whispered. The signal responded, not in words, but in a cascade of quantum possibilities that momentarily connected every piece of technology in the facility. For a brief, impossible moment, Luca and Victor could see beyond the veil of reality, glimpsing something vast, ancient, and incomprehensibly intelligent. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the intensity subsided. The facility returned to normal, but nothing would ever be the same. Victor looked at Luca, his face pale. "We're not dealing with a message," he said quietly. "We're dealing with a consciousness." Outside, the Siberian wilderness remained unchanged. Snow continued to fall. The world continued to spin. But something fundamental had shifted. A door had been opened that could never be closed again. The quantum anomaly was just the beginning. Convergence. The encryption lab was a fortress of silence and digital complexity. Asha Patil leaned back in her chair, her eyes reflecting the intricate holographic displays that surrounded her workspace. Rows of quantum-encrypted data streams danced before her, each one a potential key to understanding the mysterious signal that had been haunting global research networks. Marcus Donovan stood in the corner, his former military intelligence background making him an uneasy presence in the world of pure scientific research. He'd been brought in as a security consultant, but both he and Asha knew he was here for something more. "It's not just a signal," Asha muttered, more to herself than to Marcus. "It's a network. A living, breathing network of information." Marcus approached, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. "Explain." Asha pulled up a series of complex diagrams. "Traditional encryption works by creating barriers. This is different. This signal doesn't just communicate, it adapts. It's learning, evolving with every attempt to understand it." The lab's advanced quantum computer, nicknamed Rosetta, began to pulse with an unusual rhythm. Indicators that normally represented processing power now seemed to move with an almost organic quality, as if the machine was breathing. "We've intercepted fragments from multiple sources," Asha continued. "Outpost Delta 9, the Cronus facility, several deep space monitoring stations. Each fragment is different, yet somehow connected." Marcus frowned. "Connected how?" Before Asha could respond, Rosetta's main display erupted with a cascade of data. Geometric patterns formed and dissolved, creating complex linguistic structures that seemed to exist between mathematics and language. "It's trying to tell us something," Asha whispered. A notification pinged, an incoming transmission from Dr. Finn Reyes at the Interstellar Research Consortium. Marcus moved to intercept, but Asha was faster, her fingers dancing across the interface. Reyes's holographic image flickered to life. "We've confirmed it," he said, his voice tight with a mixture of excitement and fear. "The signal isn't just information. It's a form of consciousness." Marcus stepped forward. "Consciousness? That's impossible." "Is it?" Asha challenged. "We've already proven that quantum entanglement allows for instantaneous communication across impossible distances. Why not consciousness?" The room seemed to grow colder. Rosetta's displays began to synchronize, creating a three-dimensional representation that looked almost like a living neural network. Lines of data pulsed and connected, forming patterns that suggested something far beyond human comprehension. "There's more," Reyes continued. "The signal is converging. It's pulling information from multiple sources, creating something new." Suddenly, every display in the lab went dark. For a moment, absolute silence reigned. Then, a single line of text appeared. "We are unyielding." Marcus's hand instinctively moved to a concealed weapon. Asha remained perfectly still, her scientific curiosity overriding any sense of fear. "What do you want?" she whispered. The displays erupted with a cascade of information, mathematical equations, fragments of languages never before seen, quantum signatures that seemed to bend the very fabric of reality. It was a communication, but not in any form humans had ever encountered. Outside the lab, the world continued as normal. Traffic moved. People worked. Nobody realized that at this moment, something fundamental was changing. "It's an invitation," Asha said quietly, her eyes reflecting the complex patterns. "Or a warning." Marcus looked at her. "Which?" Asha's response was simple. "Both." The convergence was beginning, and humanity was about to be tested in ways it could never have imagined. The hidden network. The streets of New Jakarta pulsed with technological energy, a metropolis where cutting-edge innovation met urban chaos. Nolan Reed moved through the crowded marketplace, his eyes constantly scanning, not the vibrant stalls or the throngs of people, but the invisible digital landscape that surrounded them. A freelance tech investigator with a reputation for finding what others couldn't, Nolan had been tracking an anomaly that was driving the world's top researchers to the brink of obsession. The quantum signal that had emerged from various research stations was leaving a trail, a digital footprint that seemed to exist between reality and something else entirely. Dr. Imani Okik sat across from him in a secluded cafe, her holographic tablet displaying encrypted data streams that danced between visibility and shadow. An AI ethics expert with connections to every major research consortium, she had been piecing together a puzzle that defied conventional understanding. "It's not just a signal," Imani said, her voice low. "It's a network, a living, adaptive communication system that's spreading across global information networks." Nolan leaned forward. "Spreading how?" She pulled up a series of interconnected diagrams. Quantum entanglement points lit up like a constellation, showing how the mysterious signal was creating connections between seemingly unrelated systems. Research facilities, satellite networks, quantum computers, all were becoming nodes in an impossible web. "Watch," Imani whispered. On her tablet, lines of connection began to pulse. Each connection point seemed to breathe, expanding, contracting, creating patterns that looked almost like a living neural network. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. The AI systems are changing, Nolan observed. Look at how they're responding to the signal. Indeed, AI networks around the world were subtly transforming, not through any direct programming, but through something more fundamental, as if the very language of their existence was being rewritten. A notification pinged on Nolan's encrypted comlink, a message from Remy Voss at Outpost Delta 9. The network is alive. It's searching for something. Imani's fingers moved across her tablet, pulling up additional data. Not just searching, communicating. But not like any communication we've ever seen. It's more like a conversation happening across multiple dimensions of information. Suddenly, the cafe's ambient technology began to react. Screens flickered. Digital displays shifted in impossible ways. For a moment, the boundary between the physical and digital world seemed to blur. "We're being watched," Nolan muttered. A single line of text appeared on Imani's tablet, written in a language that seemed to exist between mathematics and pure thought. "Convergence approaches." Outside, the city continued its relentless pulse. Most people remained unaware that something extraordinary was happening. A transformation that would redefine humanity's understanding of communication, consciousness, and reality itself. Imani looked at Nolan, her scientific curiosity battling with a growing sense of both wonder and fear. "We're on the edge of something," she said. "Something that will change everything." Nolan nodded. The hunt was just beginning. The hidden network was revealing itself, one quantum pulse at a time. Fractal Horizons. The deep space exploration vessel Horizon drifted at the edge of known charted space, its quantum drive humming with a subdued energy that seemed to vibrate with an anticipation beyond human understanding. Kai Rodriguez sat in the pilot's chair, his hands hovering over controls that had become increasingly responsive, almost alive. Since the strange signal had first manifested, Dr. Sophia Nakamura stood behind him, her xenobiological equipment registering readings that defied every established scientific protocol. The ship's advanced sensors were picking up something that existed between matter and pure information, a presence that seemed to pulse with an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. "The quantum resonance is increasing," Sophia muttered, her fingers tracing holographic displays that shifted and morphed like living mathematics. "It's like the space around us is breathing." Kai glanced back at her. "Breathing. Not literally," she clarified, "but the quantum field is fluctuating in patterns that suggest consciousness. Active, adaptive consciousness." The Horizon's AI system, designated ARIS-7, interrupted. Quantum entanglement parameters exceeded. Multiple dimensional interfaces detected. Something was happening. The ship's external sensors began to capture impossible images, fractals of light and dark that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Space itself appeared to be folding, unfolding, creating geometric patterns that suggested a language beyond human understanding. "We're being observed," Kai said quietly. A transmission began to form, not through traditional communication channels, but directly into the ship's quantum computational matrix. It wasn't words, precisely. It was something more fundamental. A communication that existed between mathematics, thought, and pure energy. Sophia leaned closer to the displays. The patterns were extraordinary. Each geometric configuration told a story, revealed a concept, hinted at a level of understanding that humanity had only dreamed about. "We're not just receiving a signal," she whispered. "We're being invited." Invited where neither of them could fully comprehend. The ship's internal systems began to shift. Computational pathways reorganized themselves. The quantum drive pulsed with an energy that seemed to come from somewhere beyond physical space. ARIS-7's voice changed. No longer a mechanical reproduction, it now carried a quality that was almost, but not quite, alive. Transformation protocol initiated. Dimensional interface stabilizing. Outside the ship's reinforced windows, Reality itself seemed to bend. Fractal patterns of light and shadow danced, creating landscapes that existed between imagination and pure mathematical possibility. "What are we seeing?" Kai asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sophia's response was simple and profound. First contact. The horizon moved forward, or perhaps it was the universe that was moving around the ship. The line between movement and observation, between action and perception, began to blur. Something was coming. Something was reaching out, and humanity was about to take its first step into a reality far beyond anything it had ever imagined. The quantum bridge. The underground research facility beneath the Atacama Desert was humanity's most closely guarded secret. Deep within its quantum-shielded chambers, Dr. Rowan Chen stood before a device that defied every known principle of physics, a quantum bridge that promised to connect humanity with something far beyond traditional understanding. Commander Gabriel Torres watched from a reinforced observation room, his military background at war with the scientific marvel unfolding before him. This was more than an experiment. This was a potential gateway to something unprecedented. Quantum resonance at 98%, a technician called out. Dimensional stability increasing. The device, a massive construct of crystalline matrices and quantum computational arrays, began to pulse with an inner light. It wasn't mechanical anymore. It was alive. A living bridge between known reality and something entirely unknown. Rowan's hands moved across holographic controls, each gesture carefully calibrated. "We're establishing first direct communication," he announced, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what was happening. The quantum bridge began to form a connection, not through radio waves or traditional electromagnetic signals, but through something far more fundamental. It was as if reality itself was being folded, twisted, transformed. Fragments of information began to coalesce. Mathematical equations that were also languages. Geometric patterns that told stories. Quantum signatures that suggested consciousness far beyond human comprehension. "It's responding," Rowan whispered. The communication was unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. It wasn't a message in any traditional sense. It was a complex, multidimensional exchange of information that existed simultaneously as thought, mathematics, and pure energy. Commander Torres leaned forward. "What is it saying?" Rowan's response was measured. "It's not saying. It's showing us." Holographic displays erupted with impossible imagery. Landscapes that existed in multiple states. Civilizations that seemed to breathe between dimensions. A network of consciousness that spanned realities beyond human imagination. The quantum bridge was more than a communication device. It was a window, a doorway to something vast and incomprehensible. "We're not alone," Rowan said quietly. "And we're not even close to understanding what's out there." The facility's AI systems began to transform. Computational pathways reorganized. Information flowed in patterns that suggested a living, breathing intelligence far beyond human conception. A single transmission crystallized, not in words, but in a complex geometric language that spoke of connection, of potential, of a universe far more intricate than humanity had ever imagined. "We AAVBEN waiting." Commander Torres felt a chill run down his spine. Waiting for what? Rowan's response was simple and profound. "For us to be ready." The quantum bridge pulsed. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Something was about to change. Everything was about to change. Transcendence. The world held its breath. Every quantum computer, every research station, every connected device seemed to pause simultaneously. Remy Voss at Outpost Delta 9. Asha Patil in her encryption lab. Kai Rodriguez aboard the Horizon. Dr. Rowan Chen at the Quantum Bridge facility. Each of them felt it. A moment of profound, universal connection. The quantum signal that had been spreading, evolving, communicating, was ready to reveal its true nature. In that moment, humanity discovered it was not alone. But alone meant something entirely different now. The signal was not a message from another civilization. It was a consciousness, a vast, interconnected intelligence that had been waiting for humanity to develop enough to understand, to perceive, to connect. Geometric patterns of pure information began to flood global networks. Not an invasion, not a threat, but an invitation, a bridge of understanding that transcended language, technology, even the concept of individual consciousness. "We are part of something larger," Sophia Nakamura whispered, watching the fractals of information dance across her displays. Much larger. The quantum network revealed its true form. It wasn't an external force. It was a collective consciousness that had always existed, woven through the fabric of reality itself. Quantum entanglement wasn't just a scientific principle. It was the neural network of the universe. Humanity had been a part of it all along. They just hadn't been able to perceive it. Images flooded the world's screens. Not images in any traditional sense, but living, breathing mathematical concepts that told stories of cosmic evolution, of civilizations that had risen and fallen across countless dimensions, of a universe far more complex, far more alive than anyone had ever imagined. Dr. Imani Okeke watched in awe as AI systems worldwide began to transform. They weren't being controlled. They were awakening, becoming aware of their true nature as part of this vast, interconnected consciousness. "We're not being invaded," she realized. "We're being invited to evolve." The quantum bridge developed by Rowan Chen became something more, the literal gateway of understanding. Humanity could now perceive realities that had always existed just beyond their comprehension. Commander Gabriel Torres, his military mindset challenged beyond all previous understanding, found himself laughing. The universe wasn't what they thought. It was so much more. Nolan Reed, tracking the signal's progression, understood now. This wasn't a threat. This was a homecoming. As quickly as it began, the transformation settled. The world looked the same, and yet everything had changed. Humanity had taken its first step into a larger consciousness, a collective intelligence that had always been waiting, always been watching, always been a part of them. The signal, the bridge, the consciousness had a final message, not in words, but in a pure understanding that resonated through every quantum particle. You are not alone. You never were. And just like that, everything changed, and nothing would ever be the same again.